We experience global crises as sudden, unpredictable shocks. Environmental collapse, economic crashes, societal breakdown, they hit like isolated disasters that our leaders cannot solve. We define the modern era by these events. Smoke blocking the sun over burning oil fields, or supply chains freezing overnight. We treat each of these as a distinct fire to be put out, reacting to surface-level symptoms while the underlying trouble remains. The individuals attempting to solve these problems operate under bounded rationality. A politician or a CEO makes a decision that is perfectly reasonable from where they sit, but because they see only a fragment of the whole, those local decisions stack up into global messes. Treating these crises as isolated accidents guarantees a failed response. We pour energy into fighting the outputs of a process, rather than examining the process itself. When we fixate on the daily news cycle or track hour-by-hour market fluctuations, we are trapped in event-event analysis. We see one thing happen, followed by another, and miss the connection between them. This chart shows how misleading that perspective is. Up close, events appear random and chaotic, but as we zoom out to a wider time horizon, those jagged spikes form a predictable, repeating pattern. The system is generating its own behavior. We look for people to blame, politicians, competitors, or foreign oil cartels. But no single actor could trigger a global collapse if the system hadn't already built an economy that is highly vulnerable to supply interruptions. To fix a broken world, we have to stop reacting to the events dropping out of the black box. We have to map the hidden plumbing inside it. This represents the foundation of any system, a stock. A stock is an accumulation of material or information that has built up over time, like water in a tub, the money in a bank, or the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere. The level of that stock changes through flows. These are the rates of filling and draining, births and deaths, purchases and sales, extraction and regeneration. The current state of a stock is simply the memory of its changing flows. The mechanism driving this is the feedback loop. The system monitors the level of the stock and uses that information to adjust the flows, allowing the system to regulate its own behavior. These loops take two forms. Balancing loops provide stability, adjusting flows to keep a stock within a safe range. Reinforcing loops act as engines for runaway growth or collapse, where a change in the stock leads to more change in the same direction. Every human and natural process on Earth is a network of these exact mechanics. When the feedback is delayed or the flows are unbalanced, the system doesn't necessarily crash. It simply produces outcomes that no one wants, from persistent poverty to chronic environmental decay. We see these mechanics misaligned in a failure called the tragedy of the commons. It occurs when multiple independent users share a limited, erodible resource. For the individual user, the logic is unyielding. They gain all the benefit of extracting the resource, but share the cost of its depletion with everyone else. Their only rational move is to extract more, even as the total stock vanishes. In systems terms, this is a missing feedback loop. There is no direct signal connecting the declining health of the resource back to the user's decision to consume. Without that signal, the reinforcing loop of extraction overwhelms the environment's ability to regenerate. The resource is pushed past its limits, and everyone, even the most successful user, is eventually ruined. This isn't the work of malicious people. It is a structural architecture that makes selfish behavior convenient and responsible behavior nearly impossible. To fix a structure that produces bad behavior, we have to find leverage points, places in a system where a small shift can produce a large shift in performance. Our default instinct is to pull the lowest leverage point available, tweaking numbers. We raise taxes, change interest rates, or alter the minimum wage. We sign new trade agreements or elect new leaders, expecting a different outcome. But the new actors are immediately plugged into the exact same underlying rules and feedback loops as the people they replaced. You can adjust the faucet all you want, but if the plumbing remains the same, the system will eventually drift back to its original state. Higher leverage requires rewiring the structure, specifically restoring missing information. If we force decision makers to feel the direct consequences of their actions, the system can begin to stabilize itself. Moving further up the ladder means changing the overarching goal of the system. If a corporation's goal shifts from monopolizing a market to sustaining it, every subsystem beneath it must adapt. The rules, the loops, and the parameters all fall into a new alignment to serve that new objective. Changing these goals is highly effective, but it is also where we see the most resistance, because it threatens the power dynamics built around the old system. The highest leverage point is the paradigm. This is the set of unstated assumptions out of which all system goals, rules, and structures are born. Intervening at this level means altering a society's core belief about how reality works. When that consensus changes, the material world follows. Ancient Egyptians built pyramids because they believed in a physical afterlife. We build skyscrapers because we believe urban space is precious. The architecture of a civilization is a thought made visible. But there is a final step, the realization that no paradigm is absolute truth. Every worldview is a limited understanding of an immense universe. Recognizing this allows us to stay flexible, unattached to our rigid mental models. Our effectiveness doesn't come from forcing a system to obey our will, but from learning to observe its behavior as a whole. By building models of these structures, we can finally move outside the immediate crisis, giving us the wisdom to see the dance of the system and the courage to redesign it.